The opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect those of Talk Radio AM 640.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Roger, backup clock is started.
Extreme radio for extreme times. This is A View from Space with the Spaceman on Talk Radio AM 640.
I'm the Spaceman. This is A View from Space. I'd like to welcome you in if you're listening right now to the radio station, AM 640. I welcome you in. Or if you're at work now, listening via the Radio Player Canada app, I welcome you in. Or if you're picking up the show right now on Apple Music for free, welcome you in. Or maybe you're what some call the best seat in the house, sitting in front of your Mac, your PC, logged on to 640toronto.com, picking up the live audio streaming there. I welcome you in. Wherever you are in the world, I welcome you in. The Illuminati controlled mass media are calling this Las Vegas massacre the deadliest massacre in U.S. history. But it's not. It is the deadliest massacre using guns in U.S. history. But it's not the deadliest massacre. April 19th, 1995, truck bombing. 168 killed. Oklahoma City. Timothy McVeigh supposedly parks the truck bomb in front of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in downtown Oklahoma City, which explodes, killing 168, including 19 children. Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols, convicted later in the bombing, the two patsies, motivated by their outrage over the FBI's handling of the Waco siege, supposedly was the excuse. Then there was the Lawrence Massacre of 1863, August 21, Douglas County, Kansas. As many as 200 killed. Pro-Confederate guerrillas kill civilians and burn a quarter of the town. That surpasses the Oklahoma City bombing, the Lawrence Massacre of 1863. Douglas County, Kansas, 200 killed. Colfax Massacre in 1873, also April 13th, in Colfax, Louisiana, there were up to 153 blacks killed at courthouses and as prisoners afterwards. Fort Pillow Massacre happened in 1864, April 12th. It took place at Henning, Tennessee. 297 dead. The dead were federal and mostly black troops killed by Confederate soldiers while trying to surrender. Notice all of those I've just talked about are all in April, approaching the spring equinox. Then there was June 1, 1921. The Oklahoma Tulsa race riot, it was called. 300 killed in Oklahoma in 1921, with white mobs of approximately 500 to 1,000 people instigated by the rumor of an assault of a white woman in that town. And the following minor riot, as they call it, whites armed themselves and attacked a black neighborhood in Tulsa known as the Black Wall Street. The riot killed 300 people, destroyed more than 1,100 homes, and were even reported to have dropped incendiary devices on the city, contributing to the firestorm. Airplanes were used in 1921 in the Tulsa race riot. incendiary bombs, not trying to stop it, contributing to the firestorm. The biggest mass murder in U.S. history is, of course, 9/11. Terror attack, September 11, 2001. False flag event. You know what that means. An inside job. Covered here exclusively, extensively, over and over again. It killed 2,977 American citizens. 3 aircraft hijackings, New York City, Arlington, Virginia, the Pentagon, and the crash of the airplane at Shanksville, Pennsylvania. So you know my point is, yes, it is the deadliest mass shooting in modern U.S. history, but not by far the largest mass murder in U.S. history. Not by a long shot. It's a Spaceman. It's AVFS. Talk Radio AM 640. And I'm just getting started. Please direct your emails to space@640toronto.com or spaceman@640toronto.com. I really appreciate yours. Thanks for sending it. So I said 3 numbers before this break just happened that have been used in very strategic, very meaningful positions that stand out. First is, of course, the Illuminati's cult number of 13, reincarnation. That number appears in the death count. A big number, positionally, in witchcraft, 13. The number appears, as I said, in the death count, and that number reached on Monday, one day after the event took place, when so many people were thinking and saying out loud that it would surely soar off of 58, go much higher due to the number of people shot, 489 wounded, by the way, of more than 300 now, by the way, out of the hospital. But it didn't. It never changed. Except when they included the shooter as one of the dead of the body count. So they started using 59 for a while. But there were 58 victims, a hidden 13. The number of the Illuminati cult. Not only does the number 13 appear in the death count number, but it happened on the first day of October. It's the 10th month. That was the 274th day of the year. I don't want to confuse you with 10, because that's another number that comes up more often than any other number in this event, but I wanted to place it into your mind. So, there's another 13. It appears not only in the death count, but on the date of October 1st, the date it happened. Because you see, October 1st, the day it happened last Sunday, was the 274th day of the year. That's another hidden 13. 7 and 4 plus 2. 13. Making it double 13. Double shot power for the spell cast in this event. One in the death count, and one on the very day it occurred. Hidden. But there. This magnification witchcraft, I said double shot power, is meant to lend the spell a more powerful effect. You have twice the impact of the spell that's being cast if you can put the numbers in double. And believe me when I say this was a monster, diabolical spell that's been doubled all right, that's been cast over America, indeed over the world. The Illuminati-controlled mass media are totally lying about the events of last Sunday. It is a concocted story to hang all of this on just one person. The Patsy. Name? Stephen Paddock. What's the symbology from witchcraft in that? The name represents a demon. Does the name Paddock because a demon is a toad. Original British meaning of a toad. A toad, in witchcraft, is the symbol representing a demon, demonic spirit. So we're told he was just another house-hunting retiree. And we're told by the Illuminati-controlled mass media all week when he strolled in with his girlfriend into the sales office of the Sun City development in late 2014. The agent said he was looking for somewhere to live with privacy in that area. And they had just what he was looking for. A 2,000 square foot, 2-bedroom stucco rambler on a cul-de-sac. Other houses, the realtors said, other houses might offer bigger floor plans, but the one in Babbling Brook Court had a couple of big selling points for Stephen Paddock, they said. A commanding hilltop view, and maybe the most important, privacy. Neighbors lived to the left and right, but none behind this home. Paddock, we're told, quickly said he'd take it. Beware the realtors, the elite. On his application, he said his income came from gambling. He gambled about $1 million a year, he told one of his agents. He paid cash for the house. $369,022 cash in the barrel. Soon Paddock sets about making alterations to his pumpkin-colored ranch, and his deep desire for privacy as they're trying to push this, by the way, in the Illuminati-controlled mass media, because he supposedly has this secret other life we don't know about, which is possibly concealing the motive, what we're all waiting for, that I don't think will ever come. So his actions for privacy drew the attention of his neighbors, it said. And this is one of the Illuminati-controlled mass media stories, by the way. It said he even erected a solid mesh privacy screen that blocked his neighbor's view of his home. The Illuminati-controlled mass media goes on to report this, of course. This lie being put out there was a programming device for you, so you're to believe that Stephen Paddock was leading this secret life, and he was trying to hide something by building fences and going somewhere where people couldn't see him. So the saga perpetrated by the Illuminati-controlled mass media all this week goes on to state about 20 of his new neighbors signed this petition, as well as having the Homeowners Association on their side order him to take it down. By the way, the Homeowners Association, when contacted, refused any comment on this. In other words, he disturbs the whole community with his privacy concerns, making himself super conspicuous to all around him, which would go against his whole purpose, right, of being secretive, wouldn't it? Going against his own goals hardly helps. A neighbor of Paddock's said he couldn't understand why anyone would want to obscure a gorgeous view of the town below. Why would you not have that lot for the view? And here comes what the neighbor said to hammer the point home. Obviously, I guess he wanted privacy. Okay, we get the message. Another neighbor told the Illuminati-controlled mass media that Paddock told her, I don't want to be looking at people. I don't want people looking at me. So you getting the picture there? He wanted super privacy. I'm back with more at Space Talk Radio, AM 640. This is AVFS. It's the Spaceman. This is Talk Radio, AM 640. Shows AVFS. Communicate by email, spaceman at 640toronto.com or space at 640toronto.com. Thanks for the one that you've sent to me. I really appreciate it. So with the exception of the neighborhood squabble I told you about, this Stephen Paddock character appears to be very good at keeping a low profile. So good, in fact, He managed to supposedly assemble a sizable arsenal, apparently without notice. So the police say, we're checking him from birth to death for any aspect that would give us clues. That's how obscure this man was, apparently. Here's what the Illuminati-controlled mass media reported earlier this week. They found about 4 dozen firearms in 3 of the different locations he owns. 23 in Paddock's hotel room, 7 at his home in Reno, and 19 at his house on the cul-de-sac in Mesquite that I was telling you about. They also found ammonium nitrate, which is used in bomb making, in his car. And there was some in the Mesquite home also. He shared those homes with Marilu Danley, who we're told was in the Philippines at the time of the massacre, but returned to Los Angeles immediately and met earlier this week with the FBI for some intensive questioning. Afterward, which was just like a few hours really of interrogating, afterward the lawyer read a statement from Danley saying she said she was completely unaware of Paddock's deadly plan and was cooperating with investigators. She said Paddock found her a cheap plane ticket to visit family in the Philippines and confirmed that he'd wire her money to buy a home. Danley said she believed he was breaking up with her. More on the Marilu Danley connection coming up into tonight's show, because she was quickly passed over by the police, was she not? Because they listed her immediately after the shooting, because that's the ID that booked the room at Mandalay Bay Hotel. Marilu Danley used her ID. Stephen Craig Paddock, we're told, seemed so ordinary, yet supposedly carted at least 10 suitcases with 23 guns and ammo into those bags and put them all on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino in Las Vegas room. And he did this all without raising a single eyebrow. It said he went on a gun buying spree last year. This will all fit when I get to what I believe really happened, because I am going to get to that. And I'm also going to have incredibly compelling audio that is going to prove my point. So 23 guns brought to the 32nd floor. Notice anything about the number? Again, the number, which is my second number of incredibly numerological magic that's been used in this Illuminati event spell. First the number 13, now the number 23. Again, used in a very strategic place. The location! Only it's backwards. Notice the mirror image of the floor location number 32. Just as the occultist sees the physical world being the reverse or mirror image of the spiritual world, which is where it happens first, then it happens on the spiritual plane, in a magical spell. This is the one that's being used most in the event, the number that's coming up, this third number. This is the one that's being displayed overtly. I'm talking about the number 10. Yes, the number 10 is the most prominent number used in this event. So in order to understand the meaning of its use. You must know the meaning of the number 10 in numerology. It stands for law. That's why I believe this is a game changer in the laws, and spoke about it earlier. Look at most courthouses, the street addresses. They'll break down to a 10. That's in most cases anywhere. 10 is the number of law. This is the intended goal of this staged event, and others that have been perpetrated, events, by the Illuminati, to change the laws. Just listen to the 10s running wild through this event. Again, it's in the date. It happened on the first day of the 10th month, October. The event where it took place was called the Harvest 91 Festival. Get it? The 10. 9 and 1. The word harvest, too, by the way, evokes reaping. The gathering up of the bounty after planting. So I believe the Harvest 91 Festival shooting was reaping the bounty of the planting of all of the other gun massacres in American history that is now culminating with this one, the first time automatic weapons are used, and it will be the game changer event. Paddock, the patsy, was to lug up to his hotel room. How many suitcases? 10. Full of high-powered assault rifles and ammo. The very kind they want to ban the automatic weapon. They'll be first in these gun law changes. And it's coming. More on that deeper into tonight's show on AVFS on Talk Radio AM 640. The shooting all began in what hour? The 10 o'clock hour. Sunday night. 10:08 is the official time of commencement of the shooting. Stephen Paddock. His age? 64. Yet another hidden 10. That is 5, count them, 5 carefully placed instances of the number 10 for law, which stands for law in witchcraft, in this event. 5 of them. 5, by the way, in numerology is death to the people, and fortress, the meaning of fortress for the elites, the number 5. There's 5 10s. The Illuminati mean business this time. Already in this first week since the shooting occurred, 3 bills have been introduced to Congress. The lawmakers, Congress. The first is to ban the bump stock modification device. As I'm sure you're already aware, that it's a piece that can be bought for about $100 on the internet to turn a semi-automatic gun into a fully automatic weapon. Get this, right? It's sold legally, the bump stocks, but it's illegal to use it. How about that one to bait the people to, come on. Get to it. Yeah, the bump stock is going to be banned. That'll be the first move. By the way, I grew up with guns. Country kid. You never go anywhere without one. In the country, you just don't. You get in the truck, drive somewhere, you take the gun along because you might see something you got to get rid of. Some animal might be bothering the livestock. So you always take them with you. My friends had semi-automatics. You know what they used to do? Take the shear pin out, file it down, reinstall it, and you could just pull the trigger once and hold it, and it would empty the magazine because the shear pin wouldn't click. wouldn't come back up. It's filed off. So there's lots of ways to make a semi-automatic an automatic weapon. As I said, sold legally for about $100, but it's illegal to use it. How about that? What a bait job to offer the illegal advice to the public. All done for a reason, though, to get the guns out of the hands of the people. That's what. Spaceman, Talk Radio, AM 640. There's more coming at you right after this break. I'm gotta call it Spaceman. It's Talk Radio, AM 640. Please send your emails to spaceman@640toronto.com or space@640toronto.com. Really appreciate yours. Really do. S, let me just call him S, writes, Space, enjoying the show as always, thanks. Was wondering what you thought about the alleged photo of Stephen Paddock that's been widely posted by the media, where he appears to have the number 13. Mark, a tattoo? Possibly. On his neck? Best regards, S. Yes, as well as 13 included in the death count of 58, the hidden 13. And on the day it happened, the 274th day of the year, another hidden 13, you find the 13 on the picture of the Mark's neck, just below the chin. It's the one with the black background, and it has a television in the background that is just blue. There's nothing on it, no picture on it, and the picture of Paddock has his eyes closed. Underneath of his white beard, just before his neck of his white undershirt, his T-shirt begins with his shirt open, displays a 13 tattoo. Is it airbrushed in? Possibly, because you see, one of the rabbit holes that they want you to go down and check was that, hey, Stephen Paddock had a tattoo on his neck, but the body found in the Mandalay Bay hotel room didn't have a tattoo on the neck. So that's the rabbit hole you're supposed to go chasing and go down. Just to keep you enthralled. Actually, it's just to communicate those numbers to you. Now, as I said, already, this week, gun law is going to be changed. 2 bills already. One I told you about, banning the bump stock modification device. The second bill introduced this week is to close what's called the Charleston loophole. The Charleston loophole allows people to buy a gun anyway, even if the background check is not completed within 72 hours. It must be completed within 72 hours, or they can walk out with a gun. Some states don't even have background checks. Other states do. So there's a lot of people that want a certain make of gun, certain caliber, go to other states. They don't have to go through background checks in their own state. They go to another state and buy them and take them home. Now, the third bill introduced this week is interesting. Very, very interesting. Intriguing, in fact. It's to repeal a bill that was made law back in 2005 that exonerates all gun manufacturers from any potential lawsuits that may come when the crime that's committed uses one of the guns that they made. So with the disruptor President Donald Trump in power, and having been endorsed by the powerful National Rifle Association themselves, they were the first organization, by the way, to come out and endorse Donald Trump for president, by the way. You need to know that because he, Donald Trump, being a Republican, the political party that most ferociously protects gun owners, are going to give these gun law changes their endorsement. That will clear the way for gun laws to be changed incrementally at first. This is the beginning. Las Vegas massacre was the game changer with the first automatic weapon ever used in a massacre in the United States. There's a statement already made as to what the president, Donald Trump, intends to do. It was telegraphed to the world this week. The statement said that Donald Trump is open, the White House is open to discussing a bump stock ban. And he's, as I've already stated, backed by the NRA. So what about them? What about the NRA? Where do they sit on it? Just listen. This week, the long-simmering debate in America over gun rights took a dramatic turn Thursday when the National Rifle Association unexpectedly joined an effort to restrict the bump stock device used to accelerate gunfire in the Las Vegas massacre. Remember, the Vegas massacre was the very first time, I have to press, the first time that an automatic weapon was used. And it's going to be used as the change catalyst for the gun laws. And this is just the beginning, as I keep saying. The reason the automatic weapon was used in Vegas is marking the end of the old gun era in America. It's time to change. Why now, you say? Well, we're getting closer and closer to the crash of the U.S. economy. It's coming. You can call it the correction if you want of the stock market, but everybody knows it's coming. People are calling it a correction, but it will be a crash. Since this will be tied to the debt ceiling vote, too, coming up on December 15th, not too far down the road as well. There's all the bills the American taxpayers are to be faced with that has been brought about by 3 devastating hurricanes. This year, coincidentally, 2017, is the costliest season ever, all time, with $224.1 billion in damage and payouts coming. And get this, there have been 44 all-time records set this year alone in the Dow. Stock market. Everybody knows that can't keep going up. This is all tied to the so-called enthusiasm, the hope of a coming corporate tax cut promised by President Donald Trump, which will never come, at least in the way all are expecting it to. This will precipitate the correction. Now, if I'm correct, and I believe, of course, I am, that means the people will be hard to control when things start going badly. Then when things get even worse, they'll be taking to the streets. There will be looting. Yes, maybe just even to put food in their mouths. Go out and shop for free tonight. Spaceman Talk Radio, AM 640. There's more following this break. Thanks so much for your emails. I really appreciate them. I really do. Space@640toronto.com, one. Spaceman@640toronto.com, the other. So as I was saying before the break, there will be a crash coming in America. The debt ceiling vote coming December 15th, as well as all the bills the American taxpayer is going to be saddled with the 3 devastating hurricanes. And I say this to you tonight as Hurricane Nate hits the Gulf Coast. Trying to talk it into a Cat 2. Right now it's, I believe, a Cat 1, but they're all hoping that it'll get to a Cat 2. Even more money. Cost to the American people as Donald Trump goes in to raise the debt ceiling, borrow even more than they did last year, when everybody on both sides of the aisle are saying we cannot saddle ourselves with any more debt. It looks like a possible governmental shutdown is coming. And with Donald Trump in the White House, seems a logical, natural, normal step, wouldn't it be to you? No, something is coming, something dark and sinister. That's what I'm talking about. These votes in Congress and the debt ceiling are just the tip of the iceberg, because once this actually starts to take effect, and you see the Fed is unwinding their balance sheet, which means basically to the layman, let me make it simple for you, they're taking $10 billion out of the economy every month. They'll be doing that for about 4 more years. Now, the first year or so, the first couple of years even maybe, that won't seem so bad. But when the second tranche of $10 billion a month for a couple of more years, it's going to show incredibly. Because right now there's a lot of free cash floating around with the low interest rates. That's all going to end. Possibly even an interest rate increase in about 90 to 200 days in December. Yes, things are going to get dire in America slowly but surely as this manifests itself, this money problem. And it's the same way over in Europe with Brexit. And now the Catalonian part of Spain wanting to break away. You know what Catalonia actually is? It's the richest area in all of Spain. It's the rich that are wanting to pull their area out of Spain, which will cause even more chaos. But in Europe, it's not quite as dire as it will be in America, because when push comes to shove, and there is a trade war and then a currency war, the euro is going to end up being the winner. So in America, eventually, people are going to be hard to control when things go badly. They'll be taken to the streets, as I said, looting. Maybe just to put food in their mouths, like I said. Then possibly anarchy in the streets when things get overly bad. The people taking over, can you imagine, parts of cities and controlling it, like Chicago reeks with that possibility right now. There's some parts of Chicago the cops don't even want to go in. And these people have guns armed to the teeth. The police will have an immense job on their hands. If I'm correct, the army will have to be called in. The police won't be able to handle it. No way. And they've already changed that law not long ago, covered here on IVFS, Talk Radio AM 640, on using military soldiers to police the people. It used to be illegal not very many years ago. Posse Comitatus was called. We've already seen it happen. The army called in to police the people. It was done during the riots after the Rodney King verdict in L.A. at first. George Herbert Walker Bush, the first Bush president, called in the National Guard to restore order on the island of St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Looting and racial tension broke out following devastating damage from Hurricane Hugo in the U.S. Virgin Islands. What the police and National Guard don't need is the people having equal firepower, having in their possession the same type of weapon the police and the army personnel have. Hey, that makes it a fair fight. You don't want to go in to, say, an area of Chicago that's completely dominated by these guys with that kind of weaponry to face when you go in. No, I believe the legislation has to be done now. Has to be, to make sure that that won't happen. The scenario I've just painted. And it is soon, I believe, to get done. The Illuminati have been staging gun massacres in schools, airports, malls, nightclubs for years. I've been covering them, every single one, all to this end, to get the people's minds to change about the ownership of guns. And where did this game changer event, I call it, happen? Out in the West, the wild, woolly West, where guns, hey, they get the most meaning. The most ardent gun people are in the West. Some places, some towns, you can have open gun out in the open, clearly displayed. So now you know why all of those events that I've been covering, deeper than a black hole on every single one of them in my time on the air, have been staged. All the gunplay. America has more gun-violent crimes than any other country in the world, by like 80-some%. It only happens in America because there's hardly any laws against ownership of guns. Again, that's why they happen there. It's to change the opinion of the people and to move ever closer to their police state-style rule and have it accepted by the masses under the guise of, oh, well, it's all being done for your own protection. That's how you create the chaos, to create the change. Right now in America, where all of these shootings have been taking place, nowhere else really, another place in the world, laws are being changed too, but the terror attacks are doing that in those other countries. But America, democracy, the right to own your own gun, Second Amendment they call it, still exists big time. You see, you need the people's backing if you want to change laws. In America, there are 323 million people. It's actually more, but that's the official number, because there's a lot of people that aren't American. With an estimated 300 million guns. 323 million known people, 300 million guns known about. There are many more people and many more guns, I'm sure, that aren't in that number. That I'm sure aren't in that count. Let me look at a few anomalies in this Las Vegas massacre. Because what's coming up in tonight's show is some pretty mind-blowing, astounding audio that will prove my points. Here we have a man who the Illuminati-controlled mass media said has done this twice before. No, not doing mass killings. Booking hotels overlooking places that are going to gather a lot of people, crowds. Once in August in Chicago, it said that Stephen Paddock booked a room that overlooked Chicago's Lollapalooza, the perennial music festival that draws over 400,000 people over 4 days. That was in early August of this year. The official Illuminati-controlled mass media story went on to say there's no evidence Stephen Paddock ever showed up at that hotel, though. And by the way, the hotel in question denies there was ever a Stephen Paddock listed as renting a room in their books. Another rabbit hole for you to go down and get lost in. Yeah, have fun. Starting to feel like Alice in Wonderland a little bit. Brainwashing, possibly. And 1 week before the attack in Vegas, Paddock supposedly rents a room overlooking another Las Vegas festival, the Life is Beautiful Festival. How about that for a laugh? The Life is Beautiful Festival started September 22nd, went to the 24th. Featured artists like Chance the Rapper, Lord, Gorillaz, and the XXXX. It was first reported that Paddock might have initially targeted that festival when he rented multiple condos through Airbnb at the Ogden, a luxury condominium tower, with a direct sight line to the concert grounds. I've got more on this coming up, a little deeper into tonight's show. I believe this stalking of other sites, one in Vegas and one early in August in Chicago, supposedly done by Paddock, was put out there by the Illuminati-controlled mass media and is actually another rabbit hole for you to go down. A smoke and mirrors game. Another rabbit hole to get down deep into and get lost in the programming of this event. It was done to heighten the fear factor. We almost killed you there in Chicago if you went. We almost killed you at that Life is Beautiful show that you probably attended in Vegas. You know, for those people who gather at large-style events, festivals, it creates fear as to what can happen to you at a festival. If you're going now, it's in the back of people's mind. Oh, we're going to a place that's going to have a lot of people. There could be a terrorist attack, some guy driving a truck through us all, or there could be a sniper picking us off with an automatic weapon. So you see the fear factor running fairly deep, forefront in everybody's mind. That's what the Illuminati-controlled mass media is for, by the way, to keep it in the forefront. As it was with the Manchester bombing in the Ariana Grande concert that kicked off the concert year this year in 2017, the summer season. Yeah, the 2017 summer season has been bookended by the Manchester bombing at the summer's first event in the spring, and is closing the season with the Harvest 91 Festival massacre. We've been told that Stephen Paddock, the fall guy, the patsy, the mark, booked a room at the end of the hall on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel, where he supposedly did all the shooting. I've got what the police stated, their words, coming up next on Talk Radio AM 640. As we move closer to that mind-blowing audio on A View from Space on Talk Radio AM 640. Yeah, it's the Spaceman. This is Talk Radio AM 640. Thank you so much for your email. I really appreciate it. It's the only way I communicate with you other than this radio show. Spaceman at 640toronto.com or space at 640toronto.com. Two of the addresses. Thank you so much. So we've been told by the Illuminati-controlled mass media that the patsy, Stephen Paddock, booked a room at the end of the hall on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel and Casino, where he supposedly did all the shooting. When the police stated just yesterday, and that's their words here, not mine, yesterday they have finally, all week they've been saying he acted alone, he's a lone wolf, lone gunman. Now, yesterday, Friday, the police say We believe he had help to pull this off. So someone had to know about what he was planning to do. Their words, not mine. Oh, he had help, all right. I'll explain why, who, and what coming up very shortly on AVFS Talk Radio AM 640. Remember I said at the beginning of tonight's show that I'll offer you evidence from eyewitnesses who saw evidence of that fact, that he indeed had help. I'm even questioning if Stephen Paddock did any of the shooting at all. Can I state that one more time? I'm beginning to believe. At first I just started questioning if Stephen Paddock did any of the shooting at all. Now I don't believe he did it at all. After doing the research on today's show, that, by the way, has taken all damn week to get done, I don't believe for a moment that the elites were about to stage an event where they had to count on their patsy, the one they're to blame it all on, to be capable of perpetrating this deed to maximum potential. I don't think... I actually know they knew he couldn't pull it off. I mean, one of his two brothers even said as much. Where'd he get all these guns from? How did he ever learn to handle them all? And I want to ask you this question. Where did he do all of this practicing? You can't go from a retired accountant and real estate millionaire, got by buying and flipping houses, we're told, to being a sniper that's a sharpshooter with an AR-15, knowing how to break it down, to assemble it, to load it, to install a bump stock, to make it an automatic. You've got to know your stuff. You're in the Army. You're drilled over and over and over on your weapon. And I know this much, too, because I've got 3 uncles that have been in the armed forces, that you have to learn to do it blindfolded. You've got to be able to do it in the dark when you can't be seen, because any light will bring fire. You got to shoot a lot to know the ins and outs of using an automatic weapon of that caliber. They're not simple. Vegas shooter's body. Stephen Paddock is seen splayed on his hotel room floor next to 2 assault rifles. Convenient for the picture. There's also ammo. And, listen to this, you might not have heard about it, and a possible note. You heard about the note? You know what I think about the note? It's another rabbit hole. Because it's not coming up anywhere on the Illuminati-controlled mass media at all. It's a rabbit hole. There's no note. And as it's revealed, he supposedly had a couple of cameras. One in a room service cart in the hallway, and one by his door's peephole, so he knew when police were coming, the Illuminati-controlled mass media says. But I got a different story that's coming up on that, why those cameras were out there. The Illuminati-controlled mass media even states now that Paddock had planned to escape. This, when I heard it, was so over-the-top ridiculous, I couldn't believe they were actually even saying it. If you were planning and shooting a whole bunch of people and getting the hell out of there fast. You would not take 32 guns up to a room and leave all that evidence laying around, first of all. 32nd floor takes a hell of a long time. All the way up to the 32nd floor and you're going to escape? That's a long way to get out. Time-consuming is another thing. Oh, but we're told by the Illuminati-controlled mass media that this caper was meticulously thought out and planned. It was all right, but it wasn't done by Stephen Paddock. He was following orders, which I'll get to. It was planned meticulously by others. Hence all the dead ends. No motive. Dead ends. All the rabbit holes of Stephen Paddock's life. Confusing and ending up as dead ends with all the information given. All put out there by the Illuminati-controlled mass media to confuse and confound the masses and send them down this rabbit hole to keep this story front and center and on their minds. What made him do it? The ICMM, the Illuminati-controlled mass media, shows photos of Paddock's dead body on the floor in the hotel room after he supposedly commits suicide. More on that in a second. Conveniently next to the body are a couple of assault rifles with bipods. You know what a bipod is? It's just like two sticks on the ground and you stick the rifle on top of it so that you don't have to hold it with your left hand. An AR-15 was one of them, and an AK-47 was another. So he had quite an assortment of these guns, these automatic weapons, up in that hotel room at Mandalay Bay, all 32 of them. Oh, and by the way, one of those two, either the AR-15 or the AK-47, has supposedly had a bump stock, making it effectively fully automatic, setting up the little ruse to spin on the Illuminati-controlled mass media all this week. Truth is coming. Hang on. More next on Talk Radio AM 640. I'm the guy they call the Spaceman. This is Talk Radio AM 640. Emails to spaceman at 640toronto.com or space at 640toronto.com. So conveniently, photos shown all over the world by the Illuminati-controlled mass media. A couple of assault rifles next to the dead body of the patsy, John Paddock. And something that looks like a note, supposedly on a table, though police haven't mentioned finding one. I think the note is just a ruse, another smoke and mirrors game, and another rabbit hole to go down. Dozens of spent shells supposedly littered the floor, too. And in one corner, magazines with bullets in them, right? Sitting in neat stacks. A hammer is also seen, with Paddock supposedly using this hammer to smash open a couple of windows in his suite and begin firing. He's said to have fired on the crowd for 9 to 11 minutes. I know, another 9/11 telegraphed there. This is where the Illuminati-controlled mass media states that the mysterious security guard comes into the picture. Have you heard about him at all? This mysterious security guard? Well, he supposedly walks by the suite Paddock was in, room 32135, corner of the Mandalay Bay, 32nd floor. The security guard is said to have been integral to locating the room where the shooter was on the 32nd floor. As he passes by Stephen Paddock and the door, supposedly sees him. Stephen Paddock does. And fires through the door, hitting the security guard, wounding him. That's the story the Illuminati-controlled mass media spin. Because of the 2 cameras out in the hallway, he knew a person was there. I've got another take on that that's coming up very shortly. That'll make a hell of a lot more sense than this guy about to start shooting. Somebody walks by and he starts to try and blow him away. Oh, and he wants to escape too? Clean? You don't go shooting into the hallway through the door. If you want to keep where you are a secret. And there's been no talk, no single interview of this supposed hero at all, anywhere in the Illuminati-controlled mass media. No one interviewed him. No one even mentions his name or who he is or where he is now either. The mysterious security guard in the hallway that got wounded. You'd think he'd be the hero, getting hero treatment. CNN, CBS, NBC all covering it. Here's the man who got wounded while risking his life to point to the room that the assailant was in. Well, he didn't get the hero's treatment, and you heard nothing. Very early, as the story is breaking, that's the best time. That is the best time to hear or see things that'll tip you off on what actually really and truly happened, because sometimes the mistakes are made there in those stories and can be unraveled. In the case of the security guard, who 10 minutes, yeah, another 10 in the number of law, making it the 6th 10 in all. 10 minutes was stated by the Illuminati-controlled mass media that a hotel employee noticed smoke detectors coming off in the room on the 32nd floor. Smoke from gunfire, possibly, but you can bet this. It wasn't until a little more than an hour went by before that room was breached by a SWAT team, we're told, who said Paddock was already dead. You heard me correctly. It was over an hour, 72 minutes to be exact, from the time that the security guard was shot, wounded, outside the door, before cops blew in the door and found Stephen Paddock dead on the floor already. A full 72 minutes after the security guard shot. Why so long if they knew what room it was? That's an answer that's coming up too. The Illuminati-controlled mass media kept on saying over and over and over again, it's a technique in brainwashing, and that they're still not sure why the multimillionaire gambling addict would have opened random fire on people. He had no criminal record, though in the 2 weeks prior to his death, he carries out several large figure bets, we're told. And in the week before he dies, he also wires $100,000 to an account in his girlfriend's native Philippines. She said it was to buy a house for her family and herself. A girlfriend, Marilu Danley, family in the Philippines, Aussie citizen, yeah, from Australia, who lived with him for years, is another clue. In the Illuminati-controlled mass media, she's got this cover story saying that she was a casino employee in Reno, Nevada, a few years ago, at the Atlantic Casino, and met Paddock there. Fell in love, supposedly. She was in Tokyo at the time as Paddock is said to have sent her away abroad on a trip to the Philippines to see her family. But she went to the Philippines via Tokyo. As I said, an Australian citizen, to complicate her background even more. Another rabbit hole to slip down. And at the very outset, as things were unfolding in Vegas on that Sunday night, she was mentioned immediately as a traveling companion and was called a person of interest. She's, of course, since come back to the U.S. for questioning, where she satisfied the police, they said. And one of the shortest interrogations I've ever heard of, with the largest mass media massacre in U.S. history with a gun. She supposedly put through all kinds of questions, but deemed at the end to be totally and completely innocent, exonerated of any wrongdoing. No implication whatsoever. The neighbors, where she lived with Paddock, said that they saw her, this is in Mesquite, they saw her packing what looked like all of her belongings, tying things onto the roof, loading the back seat. She was packing all of her belongings into her car before she drove off, never to be seen in the neighborhood again. That was more than 3 weeks ago. 4 now, almost a month. The neighbors said it looked more like they were, breaking up. What's it sound like to you if a lady's out there loading a whole bunch of stuff on the roof and tying it down? Sound like she was going on an overseas trip? Just packing her bags for a flight to Philippines? And here's more. Another rabbit hole for you to go down to, by the way. Marilou Danley said in a statement that Paddock had told her a couple of weeks ago he had found a cheap plane ticket for her to visit her family in the Philippines. And like all Filipinos abroad, she says, I was excited to go home and see my family and friends. Oh, so then why'd you go to Tokyo? While there, she said, he wired me money, which he said was for me to buy a house for me and my family. Really? She actually flew from Tokyo to the Philippines. She arrives in the Philippines September 25th, according to the Illuminati-controlled mass media. More confusion, smoke and mirrors. Another rabbit hole. See, it's all concocted lies. I was like just stringing you along. Let me clear all this up with one sentence on what I believe happened. This Marilou Danley character is the handler of the Patsy. Her last name tells it all. More is coming up on Talk Radio AM 640. It's Spaceman, along with the chilling audio that will prove my theory is correct. I'm the guy to call Spaceman. It's Talk Radio AM 640. Emails to space@640toronto.com or spaceman@640toronto.com. So I said before this break, let me clear something up in one sentence on what I believe has happened. This Marilou Danley is the handler of the Patsy, Stephen Paddock. Look at her last name for an Illuminati connection, left behind clue. Her name has the Antichrist family, Cain's descendants, in it. The tribe of Dan. The woman's name is Dan Lee. Get it? And that's why she was exonerated, of course. I don't mean to say that she was the patsy that planned all of this and guided him through. No. She was just assigned to him to make sure things were going smoothly. I'm sure there's a higher authority who arranged all of this, who were the arrangers of all this, using Paddock as the fall guy. And I believe they're very high connected. He used to work for one of the best and biggest companies that does most of the contract work for the United States government in weaponry. As a matter of fact, the company that he worked for was Lockheed Martin, one of the largest single contractors for the U.S. government in the year 2015. They're the makers, Lockheed Martin, are the makers of the F-35, a stealth multi-role fighter. That's the one that Canada is also mulling over whether or not to buy. They manufacture the Trident Fleet ballistic missile, too. The C-130J. And all the electronics that go with it. Plus other weapons and service programs. So many to list off. They're just too numerous put on the show tonight. That's how many. They make a lot of money off the American taxpayer, believe me. Paddock worked for Lockheed Martin for years. Was an accountant. This is also another huge rabbit fall to fall down into. This whole thing, you see, is tied into, are you ready for the curveball? A movie called Fast and Furious. Yeah. This whole thing. Paddock is rumored on the internet to be an undercover arms dealer involved in a gun-running entrapment scheme, similar to the plot of Fast and Furious. This part, I believe, is true. Stephen Paddock was doing a gun deal, but not like the Illuminati-controlled mass media's internet is espousing. They have it that Stephen Paddock was supposedly an undercover FBI agent who participated in multiple illegal arms deals in Vegas area and a gun-running entrapment scheme. Just like the movie Fast and Furious. The story goes, Stephen Paddock thought he was engaging in another routine arms transfer, another gun deal. But now we're told by the Illuminati-controlled mass media on the net that ISIS had learned about the entrapment scheme because they were going to be the buyers and knew of Paddock's true identity, so they kill him and carry out the massacre themselves. ISIS did it, and then fled the scene. Oh, I tell you, the rabbit holes are many and deep. And I mean deep. That's why they said the ISIS connection at the very beginning. And they may even come out with the official truth. But I have never seen so many false leads as I have in this particular Las Vegas massacre cover-up. Never. And I've covered a lot of them. The first one ever to involve automatic weapons. That's already moved the NRA from their original stand of no ban on any gun at all, ever. Now I changed this. Now I may see where the weapons arms selling deal fits. It fits in with getting Paddock into the hotel room with all those guns. I mean, it would account for having that many guns, 32 guns in the room with all that ammo on hand, because you can't possibly use all of those guns. You use a couple, that's about it. Then he's, I guess, planning the escape too. It's ridiculous, all of this. But it would account if he was doing a gun deal. It would account for 32 different types of makes and guns in that hotel room, along with all of the ammunition neatly piled and displayed. Looks to me like the gun dealer sitting in the room with all the guns all out, told what time it would go down. The knock on the door, he opens it up after viewing the camera right? To see who it is. And then the fix happens. I'll get to that. But I see where the weapons arms selling deal fits in, with getting Paddock into that hotel room with all those weapons. It's the only plausible reason that fits, that is logical. And second, you can't escape quickly with all the evidence left behind, so the planners may have baited Paddock to do the gun sale to some undercover agents that he didn't know, who were a double cross, as I would describe it, and have others come into the room in their stead to do the real heavy lifting, the shooting, the real hired killers that were given this job of killing 58 in Vegas. Professionals, pro killers who know how to handle guns. Why would a government do that? Again, all to change the gun laws, to convince everyone it's for their own good. I'll get to that in a few minutes here on AVFS and Talk Radio AM 640. It could well have been that Stephen Paddock, the patsy, was in possibly a deep gambling debt with those who were his creditors. Vegas, full of Illuminati money. Are you kidding me? Oh, how much money does Las Vegas have? It would make your head spin if you even were close to knowing how much power is in that town. So a gambling debt possibly baits him to do a drug or a gun deal with some creditors who asked him. It's the Spaceman's Talk Radio AM 640. More next. Emails to space640toronto.com or spaceman at 640toronto.com. Okay, what you're about to hear, what's coming up on the show is audio proof that my theory is correct. And that is, Stephen Paddock is in a deep gambling debt. His creditors threaten to foreclose on him and bankrupt him or give him the ultimatum, pushed into being the patsy to do a gun sale deal. A secret gun sale deal in one of their hotels. He was instead being set up to be the patsy used for gun law changes in America. Yes, the big money in Las Vegas are big time into politics and creating this new world that's coming. The elites. I think Paddock was told by his handlers that if he closed this gun sale deal just one time, he would have cleared a lot of that debt incurred to them by his gambling habit, and they would back off on the foreclosure. That he would not go bankrupt. And this is a way of partially paying him back, with possibly even more to do. What do you think of that scenario? I imagine no one, at least very few if there are any, have thought of this possibility of Stephen Paddock being set up to do a gun deal, and that's why it accounts for all the 32 makes and styles of guns in the room with all the ammunition laid out neatly to peruse for a buyer. Let me just say, I've been following the Illuminati for a long time. They use murder, blackmail, extortion, deception, bribery to pursue their goal towards a one-world government and are ruthless. Now let me offer you some audio evidence that is so strong and compelling. What you're about to hear is so incredibly astounding. It's even enough, I believe, to change your mind, even if you're one of my most ardent skeptics on how this really went down that Sunday night in Vegas. Firstly, I've already stated that there was more than one shooter. And I don't believe now, after having done the research on tonight's show, that Paddock fired even one shot. And I've been doing it all week. I've been working on this all week. I don't think he had it in him, as all the other evidence of him states. He couldn't, I don't believe, shoot any of those guns or even load one. He was placed in that hotel room to do a gun sale deal for the reasons I've already stated. There are at least 2 other shooters involved here, maybe even 3. As, by the way, was stated at the outset, right at the start of this event, possibly 3 shooters. That's what I heard. I was there at the time watching the coverage. Because, you see, as soon as I heard about it, I went to it right away, knowing that sometimes mistakes are made at the very beginning. 3 shooters. Then, an hour later, lone gunman, only one guy. That's it. Then I began to do a little digging. And found there's actually audio and video of 2, count them, 2 muzzle flashes, guns going off, from 2 different floors of the Mandalay Bay Hotel. The videos from dash cams were taken just as this event began to unfold, right at around 10 o'clock. One was about on the 4th floor, one shooter, muzzle flashes there, and another muzzle flash can be seen also in a dash cam video of a taxi cab driver. That footage shows muzzle flashes from an automatic weapon on about the 10th floor, in around that area, close to the ground. These videos, both from dash cams and ordinary citizens in that area at that precise time that event began, never ever made it onto the Illuminati-controlled mass media. Not 1 second of it. Nothing. None of it. But they clearly show muzzle flashes on these dash cam recordings coming from around the 4th and others on the 10th floor. Okay, here it comes. Here's the audio I want you to peruse. I want you to listen carefully to each one. In this first one, you're going to hear bursts of automatic weapons. But I want you to listen very, very carefully, because you're about to hear 2 automatic weapons firing at the same time.
If we don't go.
We're going to get trampled if we don't go. Let's go. We're going to get trampled. Come on.
It's fireworks. It's fireworks. Stop. It's fireworks.
Yeah. Fireworks, all right. From an automatic weapon from the 4th floor. And then another burster 5 from the 10th floor. You see, if I isolate the automatic weapon fire, isolate it for you, you can clearly hear two different automatic weapons going off. You can tell because one sounds different than the other because they're different guns. Here is the isolated automatic weapon fire. Second gun. There. First gun, again, more bursts. You hear that? Let me play it again for you one more time so you can clearly hear there are two distinct guns going off because one sounds different than the other, and one man cannot shoot two automatic weapons off at once. That's only in movies with Arnold Schwarzenegger with one in both hands, with his arms pumped. It just doesn't happen. The kick's too great. Here it is, isolated one more time for you. Listen for the two automatic weapons. And two. Okay, the next piece of audio evidence is the police themselves admitting in their conversations on their two-way radios as this entire event unfolds at the very beginning. This is the police radio audio that will confirm gunshots from the 4th floor.
Units now advising no force post team into Mandalay Bay. There's possibly another suspect on the 4th floor.
All right, you heard possibly another suspect on the 4th floor. There were clearly muzzle flashes. That was the police monitor playing for you. That was the dispatcher from the Las Vegas Police Department on the radio instructing her men on the ground from the control center. You want to hear that audio again? Because it'll stick the second time for sure. Listen for the 4th floor shooter. Another shooter, meaning there were more than one.
Units now advising no force post team into Mandalay Bay. There's possibly another suspect on the 4th floor.
So to make sure they said what you thought they said, I played it for you twice. Now, I'm going to set you in the back seat of a taxi, and I'm going to take you back to just after 10:08 Sunday night in Las Vegas. You're sitting in the back of this taxi cab. Another piece of audio evidence of what truly happened comes from a person that was at the scene. A taxi driver who was right there at the Mandalay Hotel, waiting for fares as this whole event begins to transpire. You're about to hear taxicab driver Corey Langdon describing what she witnessed firsthand and recorded it on her dash cam in her hack. Those dash cams are always on in taxis, by the way. And you're about to be seated in the back seat. Well, let's go.
I got details on it. I'm at the airport. I just talked to the Metro Police over here at the airport. They said do not go to Mandalay Bay. There's multiple shots fired and there needs lots of medical there. Do not go to Mandalay Bay. Stay away from there.
All right, I'm leaving. This is ridiculous. I don't know why people aren't leaving. This is insane. Everybody's just standing around. It doesn't seem like anybody's moving. It seems like it's coming.
What happened, Mandalay Bay driver? What happened? multiple shots fired. They don't even know the details yet. I just talked to Metro over here at the airport. They're still getting the details, but there's multiple injuries.
You guys, there's a shots fired.
That's all they're telling me.
She's now looking at the 4th floor and the muzzle flashes.
From there, they're shutting the whole place down.
Alright, this is crazy. I don't know. It seems like it's coming from up there. Oh, shit.
That is another shots. Those are coming from the tent.
Alright, I'm out of here.
So just stay away from there.
Alright, well, I was in the Mandalay Bay, and oh my god, now there's cops everywhere. It seems like it's coming from, like, the 10th floor of Mandalay Bay. I don't know. God, this is insane.
The radio guys, 1 by 1, Jesus, man, simple.
How about that? You're in the back seat of a hack that witnessed, with the audio and video, of the Mandalay Bay massacre as it unfolded. Space Talk Radio AM 640. There's more after this. Could there possibly be more? Emails to spaceman at 640toronto.com or space at 640toronto.com. Say VFS. I'm the Spaceman, and I wonder if I changed your mind. If you were deeply skeptical of my timeline, the real timeline of this massacre in Las Vegas, I believe it was to be done at 10 p.m. That's the time Paddock was told that the boys would come a knock and that we're going to do the buy. Because they were told to come by at 10 o'clock because they were going to start the shooting shortly after 10, after they saw Mr. Paddock. So that's what the cameras were actually for, I believe, in the hallway, in the room service trolley, and above his peephole for the room. I believe he wasn't watching for people that were coming to get him, watching for police. I believe he was waiting for the right people to come along to let them in to see the guns, because he had them all displayed in the damn room. They were all laid out there like you were walking into a gun shop. And he went on the spree last year and bought most of them from a place called Guns and Guitars. Most of the buys were there. So they sent him on dry runs, a couple of them, just to make sure that Patsy would be true to his word of I'll do it. So that's what I believe happened with the Chicago condo bookings through Airbnb early in August, which that hotel said they had no person under that name, Stephen Paddock, listed as renting a room. I believe that that was a dry run. But Stephen Paddock didn't know it. They just didn't show up. And neither did Paddock, I believe. So another dry run was held. This time at the Life is Beautiful festival for the Rabbit Hole, you know, stalking a festival for the cover-up. The Life is Beautiful festival in Vegas started September 22nd, went for a couple days, where he supposedly books a room at the hotel, also sponsored by, also overlooking the festival, Life is Beautiful, in Las Vegas. But that was also a dry run to make sure that he would do it. He didn't even bring the guns to either Chicago or Las Vegas during that Life is Beautiful festival. It could have been ironing out the detail meetings of here's where we'll do it, here's when we'll do it, let's meet again and make sure that we're coordinated. You have the guns there, we'll bring the money, blah, blah, blah. Dry runs. On the night that they decide, October 1st, the gun deal to go down in room 32135 of the Mandalay Bay Hotel and Casino in Vegas is the real thing. So Paddock smuggles in the 32 guns, sets them all up for display, and then at precisely 10 p.m., the supposed gun buyers, who are in fact the hired assassins to perpetrate this event, knock on the door. Paddock opens it, expecting the gun buyers to walk in because that's who he was told what they looked like. Once they were in the room, the men seeing the guns ready for display, Paddock thought he was all set up and ready to, lift this debt thing off his shoulders. All the ammo was sitting there. These guys are going to buy for sure. These gun buyers were in reality the assassins posing as the gun buyers, as the clients. Paddock had been ordered to meet at that hotel. He had no idea that he was going to be the patsy to a killing spree by these men. So, as soon as they get in the room, they kill Paddock, of course, first thing. After killing him, they're the ones who bring the hammer and knock out a couple of windows. There were never, ever any muzzle flashes ever from the 32nd floor. It was all done from the 10th and the 4th. There were no flashes from a gun going off on the 32nd floor, just the broken windows. Remember, this only went on for 9 to 11 minutes. So these assassins posing as the gun buyers brought a hammer with them, broke the windows, saying, yeah, this is where he poked the guns out the window to do the damage. So when the killing happened, those windows were all smashed. The gun, I believe, that they used to kill Paddock and the smashing of the glass alerts this security guard, this mystery security guard. He wonders what the hell is going on in that room and goes over to see. That's when the assassins who are inside have already done the deed, start shooting shells through the damn door at him, wounding him. Remember, it took 72 minutes after the shots fired through the door that the police break down the door and find Paddock dead. 72. That's over an hour. That is plenty of time for the assassins to do a 9 to 11 minute shooting and exit the premises, where their pickup is waiting and whisking them off. All done under the cover of darkness and secrecy, with a cover-up all there for the Illuminati-controlled mass media to zoom in, to swoop in, and start telling the world the lies, the stories. Yes, plenty of time for the real assassins to make their escape. 72 minutes before they... And they were never, ever, ever alerted to the 4th or 10th floor. It was only the 32nd. Spaceman, Talk Radio, AM 640. There's more right after this. It's the Spaceman. It's Talk Radio, AM 640. Emails to spaceman at 640toronto.com or space at 640toronto.com. Just gave you my idea, my theory, which I believe is the truth. The timeline of the gun sale deal that was supposed to go down at 10 p.m. They were there precisely on time, but the gun buyers were, in fact, the assassins, posing as the clients, the gun buyers, and kill Paddock, break the windows, leave quickly, go down to their 2 locations already predetermined, probably even practiced, on the 10th and 4th floors, and began firing and assaulting that crowd, killing 58. We're talking about 5 minutes or less. But the assassins needed to enter the room of Paddock on the 32nd floor, kill him, smash the windows out, shoot at the security guard to get him the hell out of there, and then go down to their predetermined locations to shoot and assault the crowd. Then make their escape quickly after the 9 to 11 minute shootout. I played you audio that clearly had 2 different guns firing at the same time, telling you clearly there were at least 2 others. Possibly there was just a third that would look after Stephen Paddock. And his job was done after that, to assist the other 2 shooters on the 10th and the 4th floors. That could possibly be 2. I don't know, never will know. But I told you how much I know tonight. Another rabbit hole to go down deep. To give you, Stephen Paddock must have done it. Because his father, Benjamin Hoskins Paddock II. Benjamin Hoskins Paddock was on the FBI's list, the 10 most wanted fugitives at one point. One of the 10 biggest, picture all over the States. He escaped from the Federal Correctional Institute, too, at La Tuna. Very slippery character. I'm talking about not only Stephen Paddock's father, but a couple of other sons, too. He had 3 boys. So he escapes from the Federal Correction Institute at La Tuna, Texas, December 31st, 1968. He had been serving a 20-year sentence for robbing a bank in Phoenix in 1960. He was paroled circa 1979 after his capture, having served only a year for multiple bank robberies and attempting to run over a federal officer in his prison escape. So possibly this family has always helped out the elite. Paroles after 1979, after he's captured, serves only a year for multiple bank robberies. Then attempts to run over an FBI agent during his prison escape. Yeah, he's from a bad seed, that Stephen Paddock. Look at his dad. Now, there's more Hollywood shenanigans going on, too. As in the movie Fast and Furious, which actually was kind of like the plot that I believe went down with Stephen Paddock. The gun deals. Did Hollywood also predict it in the film called The Accountant? That was released just last year. Now, the deadliest shooting in U.S. history happened on the Las Vegas Strip on October 1st, 2017, when a gunman locates himself on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel and Casino, opens fire into a crowd at a festival Jason Aldean concerts playing at the time. Across the street. Kills 58. Wounds 489, and talked about these events being ritual sacrifices to Satan. I've described many of them to you if you're a regular listener to AVFS on Talk Radio AM 640. Saturn, the god of time and space. Satan, Lucifer, the god of the Illuminati. And here's a slaughter at a country music festival named Harvest. The shooter's surname, last name, Paddock. You know what a paddock is in the world of livestock? It's an enclosure, like a little fenced-in area, very tiny, which is what the crowd was symbolically reduced to. As the ground they were standing on watching that musical act became an abattoir, another word for slaughterhouse. Paddock, you see, was where they gathered all of the sacrificial victims in one place, like cattle. We're told that Paddock was a retired accountant who became a multi-millionaire through real estate investments. The patsy from the Vegas strip hoax, Stephen Paddock. A guy who had a more affinity for numbers than people. In the film The Accountant, released in 2016, has a curious plot. More next on Talk Radio AM 640. I'm the Spaceman. Communicate by email only. Besides this radio show, at two locations. One, Spaceman at 640toronto.com. The other one, space at 640toronto.com. So I was saying, just starting to get into it before the break, the Hollywood motion picture industry quite often has predictive programming in their movies. You know what predictive programming is? It's putting events that are going to happen down the road later because they know they're going to happen, because they're going to make them happen, and they make a movie out of it. And predictive programming works this way with the conscious, subconscious mind of the human being. Once you've seen something, they have that old saying, a lot of people are saying it now, I can't unsee that. Well, once it goes into the conscious mind, or even deep into the subconscious mind, where you have no control, it can lie dormant back there for a long time. But when you recognize that thing that you saw years ago, it will stir your memory back. And you'll go, oh, I know about that. I've seen that happen before. Where was that? And it would be a movie that you watched at some point. And believe me, most people are making a living watching movies today, and their heads are full of movie plots and TV plots. That's how they brainwash people. So predictive programming is affecting a human this way. When you see it, you recognize it and go, oh, I've seen that before. So you're more okay with it. You're normal. You feel like you've seen it. And it's familiar to you. Therefore, easier to accept, bottom line. Much easier to accept because I've seen it before. It's happened before. That's why all these shootings can keep on happening with no gun laws changed for a long time. That very premise. Seen it before. It's normal. It just happens. No. It's wearing on you. And it's going to induce a change. in law. That's how they do it. Predictive programming helps a lot in the movies. So, this Las Vegas Strip massacre hoax perpetrated by a patsy called Stephen Paddock, who was an accountant for, as a matter of fact, one of the biggest contractors of the U.S. government, Lockheed Martin. And the movie The Accountant has Ben Affleck playing an accountant, using a small-town CPA office as his cover. Christopher Wolfe plays the other role, also known as the accountant, makes his living as a freelance accountant for dangerous criminal organizations. Exactly what I believe was happening with Stephen Paddock, an accountant who was maybe, possibly, not sure, paying off a huge gambling debt by doing a gun sale, being the guy to consummate the gun sale. In other words, an accountant or former accountant working for a dangerous criminal organization known as the Illuminati. Yes, this is not merely the first nor the last time, I'm sure, of a staged attack, this Las Vegas massacre. There have been many over the years. Just at the top of the mind, the sinking of the Lusitania got people all riled up in the First World War. The sinking of the Titanic got rid of a lot of big money in New York that were wanting to keep the United States as it was. The ones who sank the Titanic got rid of that big money and their opposition and took it to where they wanted it to go. Many elite rich were on the Titanic that were American. Then there's the explosion of the United States Navy ship, the Maine, sinking because of an explosion when it was harbored in Mexico. It started the Spanish-American War back in 1898. Then, covered here on AM 640, on A View from Space, the attack on Pearl Harbor, in which the American forces stood down, actually allowed Pearl Harbor to be attacked by those Zeros, those aircraft from the Japanese Navy. Stood down, allowed it to happen. They closed their eyes, turned their head the other way. Even Washington knew about it and kept everybody mum about it. That was the reason the United States entered the Second World War, because their president, Roosevelt, said that he would never enter that European war unless Americans were killed. So, create the chaos to create that change. And America entered the Second World War immediately after Pearl Harbor. And there have been many gun massacres in the United States that I've covered, and many that I didn't, because I wasn't on the air. As well as the biggest inside attack in American history, the biggest inside job, 9/11. History is full of these events, if you care to check. It's going back a long, long time in history because it's always been done this way. The elites are always in control and are always creating the chaos to create change to this new world order. One world, one government, one central bank, one leader. Of all the Rosicrucian practitioners, the most famous, the most fervent was a man who's often been surmised to be the true author of Shakespeare's play. Or all of his plays, rather. That when I return on Talk Radio AM 640. I'm a Spaceman, this is AVFS. I'm the guy to call a Spaceman, it's Talk Radio AM 640. Please shoot your emails off to space640toronto.com or spaceman at 640toronto.com if you've got some information like pass along, or you've got a critique of the show, or just like to say where in the world you're listening to AVFS on Talk Radio AM 640 from. Please feel free. So as I said at the outset, just before this break began, of all the Rosicrucian practitioners, and you know what a Rosicrucianist is? That's a group of people that don't believe in Christianity, but believe that actually man is God. But how does man become God? Through knowledge. Through learning certain things. And you practice it, and through your practicing, learn to become a God. You get to the highest level as the master. Rosicrucianism, where knowledge makes man a god. After all, Zuckerberg, owner of Facebook, God. Microsoft, Bill Gates, God. Why? The knowledge. Oh, and by the way, the latest on Facebook, you know that police state I was talking about earlier? It's really closing the noose now. If you're on Facebook, and most people are, I'm not, but most people are, they're now manually going through all of your posts. Why? Well, because of fake news, see? And nefarious postings from people who, well, aren't thinking politically correct and aren't thinking the New World Order way, where we're all thinking as one. The hive. We all have to have the same view. We all can't have different views now. You have a different view and espouse it on Facebook, we'll might have to reprimand you and take it down. In other words, censor you from free speech. That's moving in even closer and closer and closer now, too, with Canada and an Islamophobia law that could become law. Now, it's just signs of the news tightening even tighter and tighter, going toward that police state. But of all the Rosicrucian practitioners, including Zuckerberg, Gates, Pete Thiel, the most famous, the most fervent, the most revered, was a man who's often been, well, hinted at being the true author of Shakespeare's plays. His name is Sir Francis Bacon. I've talked about him before. Born in England, 1561. Served in Queen Elizabeth I's court. For his services to science and philosophy, she knighted him, first Baron of Verulam, and also Viscount of St. Albans. You know who St. Albans is? I live in Toronto, Ontario, Canada here, where the show emanates from. We have a St. Albans street, too. It's out in the West End. You know who St. Albans was? He was the very first person to be killed for his belief in Christianity in England. The first all-time. Francis Bacon, Viscount of St. Albans. Bacon earned a reputation as father of the positive sciences for his philosophical, scientific writings, and for the way that he could create the chaos to change the world, although none of them explains anything about his real identity. But he was the Grand Master of the English Templars, and in this capacity the most senior Rosicrucian, the Grand Master. He was an undisputed expert in secret sciences, especially the Kabbalah, alchemy, sorcery. The so-called scientific research he undertook had very little to do with real science, believe me. It was black magic. From the Book of Solomon, no less. But much with engaging mystic and supernatural forces to win power over nature. Bacon's book, New Atlantis, his 1626 utopia of a heaven on earth, as an adaptation of the Templars' ideal state. The New Atlantis was to be the West, the United States of America, the North American continent. Bacon recounts the story of an imaginary people on an imaginary island called Bensalem, which means, by the way, New Jerusalem. An entirely scientific society full of inventions where the residents control even the weather. Yeah. There's also the science house he called Solomon's house. Where else? That's where he learned it from, the books of Solomon, of the ways of the ancient Kabbalah. You see, Solomon, they say, the wisest king who ever lived. He was a king who knew all of the black sorcery tricks on how to manipulate masses with just a very few men. So, the science house he calls Solomon's house is actually the Templars' starting point as well as their destination. What I mean by that is we have 3 sister organizations operating under 3 different names: the Templars, the Freemasons, and the Rosicrucians. But one single common aim: have all. They continue to increase their power and influence and actively try to alter the face of the earth to suit their purposes, and still continue to do just that, using every means at their disposal. As I've gotten into a little bit earlier tonight, not that the Masons are identical copies of the Templars, but their intentions are the same: to replace monotheistic religions like Christianity, Judaism, and Islam with pagan belief systems and a materialistic worldview, aggressively targeting all religious organizations. That's why you have the third in command of the Roman Catholic Church, Cardinal Peli, up on sex charges with little boys. Targeting religious organizations. This perverse teaching, painted in the colors of mysticism and occultism, was inherited from the Templars and forms the central belief of Freemasonry. It reveals itself in full only at the upper echelons of the order. The rest are lied to on the way up. Increasing in transparency bit by bit as the initiate advances up the ladder. Oh, forget about all that stuff we told you. Those are all lies. Here's the real. Here's the real deal. Okay, learn this. And that's how you separate the people from the ones you don't want, the ones you can trust and are loyal, the ones you can't trust, and the ones that are weak and may, for their own benefit, gain. They're weeded out. Masonry's global strategy is to impose this world view on the masses by preparing the ground in a nice sort of way, or in some cases by ruthlessly eliminating any obstacles. One such example is the Las Vegas massacre, first time ever an automatic weapon was used to mow down people. Ruthlessly eliminating obstacles. People having the same firepower as the army? Not in your life. Will that happen? That's how the elites do it. That's how they pick the winner of the wars. They give the winner, the one they want to win, the best weapon. How did the Second World War close? With the atomic bomb. I believe that's how the Third World War is going to open. To give you an idea what's going to go down. From the 18th century on, Freemasonry's global strategy can be recognized behind the scenes of some ideological and political movements, even today. In the occult conspiracy, English historian Michael Howard actually explained the cooperation of the occultist secret societies like the Templars, Masons, Rosicrucians, and the Illuminati, whose long ongoing struggle is to return the West to a pre-Christian paganism. You know what the back cover of that book actually reads? It says, "It is little known fact that for thousands of years, secret societies and occult groups, guardians of ancient esoteric wisdom, have exercised a strong and often crucial influence on the destiny of nations. As Freemasons, Knights Templars, and Rosicrucians, they affected the course of the French and the American revolutions, as well as the overthrow of the medieval order. The Nazis, of course, but also the British security forces. The founding fathers of America and the Vatican have all had a part for good or bad to play in this occult conspiracy." So did you hear me? What they print on the back cover of the book? As Freemasons, Knights Templar, and Rosicrucians, they affected the course of the French and American revolutions. So they're actually still pulling the strings today. They are the founding fathers of America. As the quote points out, the fight against religion was not fought on one front only. It extended to a wide range of neo-pagan philosophical or political movements. The Illuminati, who paved the way for the French Revolution, their Bavarian brothers who were trying to realize a pan-European socialist revolution, even the fascists who founded the Nazi Party, and the Carbonari, who prepared the ground for the Italian National Front. These organizations and movements had huge ideological differences, but they also shared common aims and methods, like applying pressure to religious organizations and ousting religion, placing it with a materialistic or naturalistic philosophy. You look at your world today, the Christian world is gone. When there were marriages, man and woman only, you had children and died. It's not the way it is now. It's all self-indulgence, all me. I. Not thinking outside of what's in it for me. To this end, Freemasonry has been allowed to take different shapes ever since the 18th century, molding and manipulating societies through the thoughts of the young. Spaceman on Talk Radio AM 640. There's more right after this break. I'm the guy that calls Spaceman. This is Talk Radio AM 640. Emails to space640toronto.com or spaceman at 640toronto.com. So, the fight against religion has never been fought on one front only. It's always extended to a wide range of neo-pagan philosophical or political movements, because that's who wants to replace Christianity as the religion. The Illuminati paved the way for the French Revolution, too. Their Bavarian brothers who were trying to realize a pan-European socialist revolution, even to the fascists who founded the Nazi Party, and the Carbonari who prepared the ground for the Italian National Front. And they're doing it in America, and they're doing it in Canada. Doesn't matter where you go in the world, they're doing it. Because, you see, they control the money flow and the investment money in countries, and who are the creditors of the indebted countries. So it's really impossible for me to tell you exactly all that the Freemasons have done, for by their very nature, they're a secret society. The only way of investigating their activities are to find the tip of the Masonic iceberg, explore it as much as and as deeply as possible, and then guess the rest of the picture. It's on a need-to-know basis, always has been, always will. The Templars' transformation into Masons also produced a number of byproducts, the Rosicrucians being one of these. Another is the Illuminati, one of the most talked about associations in the history of occultism. It was founded in Bavaria, southern Germany. It was also known as the Bavaria Illuminati, and its mission was to bring about a secular Masonic world order by revolutionary means. Now, there are 3 provinces in the state of Bavaria. One is called Saxe, the other Coburg, the other Goth. And there are other lands, too, in Bavaria, but those are the 3 big ones. Do you know what the name, the last name, surname of the people living in Buckingham Palace right now that are the titular heads of the British Commonwealth? The real name is Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. They changed to Windsor because they were fighting the Germans, their cousins, in the First World War, and did not want to reveal their Germanic last name so as to tip the people off it was a family feud. Creating the chaos, you see, to create change. Its founder, Adam Weishaupt, professor of law, Bavarian Illuminati, by the way, has a statue, the only Confederate general with a statue in Judiciary Square in Washington, D.C. You never heard them talking about tearing that one down, have you? Of all of this, oh, he was a racist Confederate. Hey, Adam Weishaupt was the leader of the Ku Klux Klan in his time. His statue is in the Judiciary Square of all places, too, in Washington. These people are fiercely opposed to monarchies, but one, as well as to the church. The secret society's goal? Abolish all monarchies except for the one bloodline and all ordered governments. Abolish all of private property and inheritances for the people. Abolish patriotism and nationalism. How? Get rid of the borders. Make everybody one. Abolish family life and the institution of marriage. I would say that's pretty much already fait accompli. Huh? Already finished. And the establishment of communal education of children, another one of the goals. They call it daycare. Oh, you have a 2-year-old? We have room. You see, a formative year for all human beings is around 3. Already by 3, their personalities are established, and much of how they're going to view the world established. But before that, clean slate. And that's why they want communal education of children at the youngest of ages these days. That's why another, not the only reason, but that's one of the reasons, part and parcel, that goes along with the entire plan to cut people's salaries. Make them work all the time so that they have to give up their children. Can't bring them up themselves. They'll have to go somewhere else to get them brought up. Thank you very much. We'll take care of your little child and program them with the way we see fit. Bavaria is the southeast region of modern Germany today, borders Switzerland and Austria. The Encyclopedia of the Occult reveals that the Illuminati Society, increasingly powerful in Germany, was practicing all kinds of Masonic rituals while preserving its own distinct identity. Adam Weishaupt, the Grand Master, stamped his authority, as a matter of fact, on the hundreds of intellectuals who had joined the society, even though only a very few he had access to. In 1780, the German Baron von Knigge, a Grand Master Mason, joined the secret society and increased the society's influence even further. Weishaupt and Knigge began preparations for a revolution aimed at bringing down both church and the monarchy in Germany at that time, the Habsburgs. Possibly, no, without a doubt, the most inbred royal family of all time. I mean, the last of the Habsburgs couldn't have their blood clot. There was such fault in their genes after so many generations of copulating with each other to keep the power within the family. The most incestuous family of all modern royalty, Habsburgs. In 1784, when the Bavarian government received intelligence about the planned revolution in France, two Grand Masters quickly dissolved the Illuminati and joined ordinary Masonic lodges. When you find out what happens next, you'll be shocked, because I'm about to change your view of what you thought history was all about in the French Revolution. It's next on Talk Radio AM 640. I'm Space. This is AVFS. I'm the guy I call Spaceman. It's Talk Radio AM 640. Final segment in tonight's show. The Illuminati are renowned for their uncompromising hostility towards religion. And one of them is the head of the Anglican Church. As occultist historians acknowledge, some of the players of the French Revolution, like Franz Osnabrück, were of Illuminati origin also. An inside job was the French Revolution. And according to historian Mike Howard, Grand Master Weishaupt felt a pathological hatred against religion that their planned revolution tried to realize. It never happened, but their brothers in France successfully carried out theirs in the form of what's known today in past history as the French Revolution. You recall that in France, by a joint operation of the Catholic Church and the King, the Templars were arrested and their order subsequently liquidated. Jacques de Molay burned at the stake Friday the 13th. No doubt, one of the surviving Templars turned Masons' foremost ambitions was to weaken, even destroy, these two institutions. So it's easy to see how very significant that the Masons played such a role in the birth of the French Revolution. In the occultic conspiracy, English historian Mike Howard has pointed out in his book about the role played by the Masonic lodges in the preparation of that revolution. Its Grand Master, Savalet Lalage, found one of these lodges, Friends of Truth, they called it, whose political philosophy drew up from the framework for the social reforms that brought about the revolution itself. Another important lodge connected with Savalet Lalage was the Neuf Sœurs, the Nine Sisters. One, which counted among its members names like Voltaire, Benjamin Franklin, John Paul Jones, and others, was busy formulating alternative secular systems of education and developing completely secular theories of history, literature, chemistry, medicine, in opposition to the churches. Still going on today. During the Revolution, the College of Apollo, founded by the Lodge itself, was renamed the Lycée Républicain. Voltaire, Franklin, Jones, members of the Nine Sisters Masonic Lodge, had books written within that short period of the Revolution to testify to the important role Masonry played. According to a claim widely circulated, if you look, the uprising that ignited the French Revolution was planned at the Great Masonic Convention in Wilhelmsbad in 1782. One particular participant of this convention was one Comte de Mirabeau, a leader of the revolutionaries. After returning to France, he immediately moves to implement in the lodges of France the decisions taken at that convention he intended. Behind the scenes, Comte Cagliostro played a leading role in the revolution. In Italy, born in Sicily, his real name is Joseph Balsamo, a member of the Illuminati and the classic Masonic lodges of Germany. He was chosen to be one of the agents entrusted with the mission of disseminating radical and revolutionary ideas across Europe, challenging the beliefs of Christianity and that religion, so preparing the ground for the eventual French Revolution. At the end of his tour, he went to France and became a Jacobin. At the Grand Masonic Congress in 1785, he got new orders for preparing for the revolution. And that same year, Cagliostro was the focal point of the diamond necklace affair, making the Queen the victim of a conspiracy devised to give the impression that she had a love affair with a cardinal of the Roman Catholic Church. Among the people, this was the French Queen. Among the people, this irreparably dented the reputations of both the church and the monarchy in France. French novelist Alexandre Dumas actually confirmed that this scandal was arranged by the Masonic order. In his capacity as the lodge's agent provocateur, as they call it, Cagliostro was at the center of many events leading up to the revolution. In a letter about the coming revolution that he wrote from London to a friend in Paris in 1787, he spoke about how the Bastille would be stormed, that the church and monarchy would be abolished and replaced by a new religion based on the principles of reason. Cagliostro was no fortune teller. So the information that was in his letter more likely came from his superiors in the lodge about this is what's going to take place. We will see to it it does. As Michael Howard put it in his book, from 1785 to 1789, several of the Masonic lodges in France were working full-time, flat out, to undermine the monarchy and the established government. The French Revolution was the making of Freemasonry. The Masons saw the revolution as a major milestone on their way to their desired new social order, the New World Order, as well as an act of revenge for what the French monarchy had done to the Templars. When an agitated mob marched on the Bastille, Comte de Mirabeau shouted, "The idolatry of the monarchy has received a death blow from the sons and daughters of the orders of the Templar." The real aim, storming the Bastille, wasn't a free handful of prisoners at all from the strategically unimportant jailhouse. It was made a symbol of the revolution for a different reason. This was where the Grand Master Jacques de Molay had been imprisoned for years before his execution in 1314. The once head of all of the Templars, Jacques de Molay. If one purpose of the revolution was to avenge Jacques de Molay, then the Bastille was a priority target. The role played by the Freemasons, or to be more precise, the Neo-Templars, as they were switching over to the Masonry, realizing that the revolution was revealed in 1789 when the Inquisition arrested Cagliostro. He quickly confessed and told all he knew, hoping to save his life. One of the first things he told the Inquisition was that the Masons were planning revolutions right across Europe, intending to finish off what the Templars started, namely, to either destroy the papacy, the Roman Catholic Church, or bring it under their control. Today, we can safely say the Roman Catholic Church is under their control. In the springtime and summer of 1789, an artificial shortage of grain was actually created by the Illuminati manipulators of the grain market. They do this still today. There's nothing new under the sun. Just history repeating itself. This produced a famine so intense that it brought the nation to the edge of revolt. One of the leading figures in the scheme was Duc d'Orléans, the Grand Master of the Grand Orient Lodges. The Illuminists claimed that their revolution would be for the benefit of the bourgeoisie, with the people as instruments. But in reality, the conspirators held up the food supplies and blocked all reforms in the National Assembly to exacerbate the situation, make it worse. The people starved. A panic created simultaneously around the nation. Horsemen rode from town to town, telling the citizens that brigands were approaching and that everybody should take up arms and be prepared to fight. Citizens were instructed that the conspirators were being harbored in the larger estates, the chateau, and that by edict of the king all should be torched. The people, obedient to their monarch, complied, because soon the flames of destruction were burning out of control. Anarchy continued to grow as citizens began raiding and pillaging, and not only for food. I think I just showed you the future of America in a capsulated form that was done centuries ago in the French Revolution, that changed France forever, never to be the same again. Yes, what I was talking about earlier, with the economy in America, the tax reform promise that will not come. Corporations will then invest in other places in the world, and America is about to crash as the greatest empire to date, to be replaced soon by the New World Order, the final empire led by the Antichrist. I'm the Spaceman. This is Talk Radio, AM 640. Coast to Coast is next. And I am out.